Hey everyone, this is Jeff Norris, the 2024 Alabama Teacher of the Year. I'm on a mission to amplify education in the state of Alabama and celebrate the power of specific teaching strategies and initiatives. As I travel around the state, visit teachers' classrooms, and meet new people with innovative ideas, I want to share these moments with you so we can all celebrate and grow better together. Education is my passion, and I want you to realize and embrace the opportunities we have to change lives each and every day. This is the power of a moment. All right, everybody, this is episode 2 of the Power of a Moment podcast with Jeff Norris. Today we have another special guest. I'm super excited about this. We have Joel Dixon, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources in Shelby County Schools. Joel and I have known each other for years now in a couple of different roles, and so I'm trying to pick people, Joel, on these first few episodes, people who are as excited about education as I am. And so we had Sandy Evers on the last episode. There's nobody who just gets people pumped up more than her, except for you. And so I talked with Joel, people who are listening, and I said, pick a word that stands out to you. So as a quick reminder, we call this podcast Power of a Moment. And each episode, we change the last word to a different word. And this week's is Power of Movement. Is what Joel chose. So welcome to our show, Joel. Talk to us a little bit about your background and tell us who you are.
Hey, Jeff. So first, nobody's ever accused me of being an overly calm soul, so I appreciate that and have really enjoyed the work you've done, and I'm super excited about this podcast and the things of education. In the role I am in now in HR, I worry a lot about this narrative that floats out there about how hard and difficult education is. And then there's no question it's a hard career, but it's also an amazing career with tons of joy and kids and energy. And I agree with you. It should be celebrated and amplified, to steal your word.
Yeah, and what better word for that is than movement, right? So we're talking about movement in lots of different ways today. Joel and I are going to spend a few minutes just really digging into this word. We've got a video to show you. We've got a couple of stories, hopefully, to tell, and just all about movement. So start us off, Joel. I mean, I know about you something that, again, our brains are always moving, but your body moves a little bit quicker than mine does. So tell people who are listening and watching about what movement means to you in your personal life.
So I don't know if it's quicker, maybe a little more consistent, but so I'm a runner. I have been for pretty much my entire adult life. I did not run when I was a kid. I mean, I ran like every other kid, but I probably like a lot of people. I was in my 30s. I was coaching. I was eating lots of nachos at a concession stands, and because I was around people that were active. But those years pile on, and a little bit of weight piles on, and so I started running really as a way to get healthier and lose a little bit of weight. And then I discovered all these other things, all these other benefits, and it really has become one of the most foundational passions in my life. I tell people all the time, I think it makes me smarter. I think it makes me better. I know it makes me nicer. So yeah, that's one of those conversations that if we have a 3-minute conversation, running's going to come up in it somewhere.
Isn't that funny? I feel like that's so true for every runner I've ever met. Like people who start running, they get like super excited about it, and then they feel like everybody should be a runner. And so it's like their personal mission is to make everyone a runner. I have a teacher on my team who teaches 6th grade math, and he's been trying for a few years and almost was successful last summer. I got really into it. I started running about a half marathon. I got up to it, and then school started, and it just fell apart. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about building momentum and how putting good habits in place, makes running specifically possible, but also just anything you do in life, setting the stage for those good habits helps you out. But I find myself talking, when you're talking, like I'm sucking in my stomach a little bit because I agree with you, like middle age 40 is hitting me this year. So it's pretty interesting. And I also know you, like your son's a runner, I think, right? And you kind of help in your community you run too. So tell us a little bit about the whole, I call it the Columbiana Initiative. I feel like there are these runners in Columbiana. It's just kind of a neat experience.
There's not a ton of us down here, but it really is. It undergirds almost everything I do. And so I direct a couple of different races here in the city of Columbiana. One is a charity fundraiser that helps families that are in the process of adoption. We do that every January because what a great way to start a school year, or what a great way to start a new year to be active and fit. And then we do one in June, at the end of the June, as part of the Liberty Day celebration here in Columbiana. Um, I always say all the time, runners are the most positive people you'll ever meet. It is a great, and it doesn't matter whether you're that guy that's clocking out, a 16, 17 minute 5K, or whether you're the guy that's finishing it in 35, 40 minutes. Um, the benefits are the same, and the value is the same, and the celebration is the same. So it fuels everything that I believe.
Yeah. I love, and what I hear from people who are runners, it's like there's like these three stages. So maybe this is something I'm just throwing throw this out there. It's like you have this anticipation, this build up, and like with any sport, there's like this practice that you put in, the hard work that you put in, and then you have this like immediate payoff in the race, and then it's like after the race that separate feeling, like it's like three separate feelings that you have, all encapsulated into one activity. I don't know if you've experienced that or not, but I kind of see that for people I know who are into running.
So for me, I mean, it's probably like a lot of goal setting things in that if I go a couple of days without being able to run, and just like everybody, sometimes our lives are so busy that we don't have time. I really start to crave it, and I miss the feeling that comes with it, the sweat and the work, and that sensation of, the rest of a laboring man is sweet. Um, while I'm doing it, there's always a point. I always jokingly say the first mile is a liar. The first mile convinces you that you're going to die. But if you can get through that first mile, it's so much better. And then there's that place where a lot of times you get those endorphins pumping and you start having good ideas. You start thinking through problems. There's a lot of sort of just natural problem solving that happens on the run. In fact, I stop on the side of the road all the time and will pull my phone out and jot down some idea or some that just came to me when I was clocking out miles. And then certainly afterwards, there's always the satisfaction of accomplishing whatever it is, whether it's a 5K or whether it's a half marathon, what it might be. But then almost immediately thereafter is that voice of, but next time, what can I improve? How can I get a 1% better? What can I do to be just a little bit better? And then, like I said, I think that then fuels into every other part of my life. There's the crave the work, the do the work and enjoy the work,
Mm.
and then reflect and how can you be better.
Yeah, crave the work, do the work, and enjoy the work. I'm gonna steal that one. I tell people all the time that I steal catchphrases and words, and you can see behind me I have all this big wall full of words, and then I butcher all of them. So I crave the work, do the work, and the last one was enjoy. What'd you say?
Yeah.
Uh,
How do I get better?
I love that. Yeah, grow from it. So that's awesome.
Well,
That's
and if you
great.
want to make it, if you want to make it literary, T.S. Eliot said, "Good poets borrow, great poets steal."
Hey, I love that. Yeah, you give me permission. What I'm hearing you say is that I have permission to steal from you. This is the assistant superintendent of human resources telling me this. That's what I'm saying. I'm recording this right now.
In
Uh,
this area, absolutely. If you find value in it, steal it, man. Run it out there.
that's also when I mean, as you're talking through this, on a physical level and running, and you kind of briefly mentioned this, like how it relates to everything in life. So again, I mean, I'm just thinking of I talk to teachers, and you talk to teachers all the time, who are brand new to the field of education, and so as well as I do, we have this. I don't know in our particular district if it's a crisis, but we definitely have a shortage of teachers. And so what I tell people is, yes, we want to encourage people to go into our field because it's amazing. We also want to encourage good people to come into our field, and then the third thing is we want to encourage people who we want to keep our good people also. And so when I think of like what advice I give to new teachers, really to any teacher, is like what we do matters, and it's hard, right? Like and it's okay that it's hard, just like you said with running. Like hard work is okay, and the payoff is almost better because of the hard work you put in. And I think the same thing for teaching. I mean, it's hard. It's harder probably now than it was 19 years ago for me, honestly. But it also means more to me now than it did 19 years ago, and I see the impact even more than I did 19 years ago. So I love this, this metaphor, this just how running relates to pretty much anything in life, but especially to education.
So you mentioned, the shortage, and that there's no question that's real. There's fewer people going into education than there used to be, and then holding on to good people once they're here. So we're in our 6th year of it now, and it's gotten a little bit better every year. We have something we call the First Year Teacher Academy. So we meet with our brand new teachers 3 times a year, and we try to be really intentional. The first one is really practical. In fact, you were our presenter for elementary this year, and it was the walking orders for those presenters are always, I want you to give these new teachers really practical, really useful things that they can take back to their classroom tomorrow without having to do a complete tear down and rebuild that's going to make them have very effective
It's real life.
work goes on. But that's going to help them be happier, that's going to help them be more effective, that's going to make them be more impactful. And every presenter we've had has done a great job, but just really, we try to equip them. And then our second one is actually all about wellness and taking care of yourself, because most of our teachers, and this is nationally, more teachers who leave the profession leave in the first 3 years because they get burned out, because they go in and they think, I have to do it all. I can only say yes. I have to coach 3 sports. And I always tell teachers, don't volunteer for something you don't love. If there's not something you love in the school, volunteer to put it in the school, and then you get to see the best of kids. You get to do something you love, and you get to add value to the culture of that particular school building. And so we emphasize a lot taking care of yourself and making this a marathon rather than a sprint, to go back to the metaphor of running.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so one of the ways, and you spoke to this too, like the wellness and the mental wellness and mental well-being in our district. I feel like you maybe started this, or at least we're part of a team years ago. We started having this initiative to increase teacher wellness and educator wellness, and so now it's kind of been coined as Fit February, which I love. I love alliteration. We're English teachers, so I love Fit February, and so I was. We were talking about this earlier, and you recommended that there was this video that we did. So we have an amazing media specialist team who kind of chronicles teachers in our county and like really watches them and looks for stories. And so with Fit February, we were detailing different educators who had different strategies for increasing their wellness. And so one of these videos that we talked about was by an assistant principal in our district. His name is Marcus Harris, and we're going to see this is only my second episode, Joel. So we're going to see if I can pull it up and showcase this story of Marcus, and then we will talk a little bit more about it as we're watching, or maybe after we watch it. So let's see if this pulls up.
I'm Marcus Harris, the assistant principal at Calera Middle School, and this is my fit. When I first started running, I knew that I wanted to lose the weight, but even after I lost the weight, I knew that most people would gain it back pretty instantly. I was about 210 pounds and just needing to do something to focus on my fitness. My main goal was having that 5-year goal of what happens after I hit 5 years. And so I hit 5 years last year. I was just really excited about hitting that. So it wasn't just about making sure that I hit the goal, but what happens after I hit the goal of weight loss. It's my getaway. This is my time to just be with myself in the open road. And as far as to de-stress, I can leave it all out on the track, on the road, and just to get everything out of myself. So if I ever need to get away, I just go for a run, listen to some music. It's my relaxation time. Secretly in the back of my mind, I know that I did something that most people haven't done. As they're starting their day, they're just waking up, probably groggy and everything. And I've already run 8 miles this morning. And so it's just a good feeling to know that I've accomplished something that's a good start to my day. I always suggest people just make something a habit, find something that's your getaway, that's your habit. So when I first started off running, I just wanted to dedicate 30 minutes to running. I had a dog and we used to go out running together. And so it's just all about dedicating a few minutes a day to doing something healthier. to make those healthy habits. While running, it encourages me to eat healthier and to focus on myself more than just working. It's more than just a checklist. It's one of those things where I know that I've accomplished something, and it's just a fresh start to the day. And then, of course, I give my time to work, and then after that, I give my time to my family. So try to handle all the big three within one day. It's a challenge, but it's something that I try to do.
Love that.
Me
Yeah.
too.
So yeah, I mean, and if you know Marcus, it's funny because it's like he is a very balanced person. So I love hearing that, that there's this piece of just making sure that you're finding balance in your life and that you are uh, moving at all times, which is kind of interesting, right? But it's also like you're moving in different ways. I watched. We had a speaker years ago. I don't know if you remember this. He was a like a circus performer, so he like juggled and was on a unicycle. Do you remember him?
I
And so
do.
he came to one of our symposiums, our summit days, and he was sharing with us about he wrote a book called Off Balance on Purpose, and so he was talking about when you're riding a unicycle or when you're moving, even like when you're juggling, that you always have to keep moving and you can never stay like perfectly balanced, or else you'll fall over. And so when we talk about movement, I think that's also kind of important, right? Like there are times in your life where we have to be realistic. I tell people, like, I'm going to be really busy at work right now. So something has to give. My teenagers have to like pick up some slack at home, or I know that we've got this really busy season at church or at school. And so we just have to, nothing ever is going to be completely balanced. It's like we're always moving and shifting. And so I think when we talk about the power of movement, maybe that's something that people don't always realize, but that um, we have a lot going on. So finding a way to balance all of that. So talk a little bit about. I know you really encourage people in your position again to be the best they can be for other people. So how does that relate, do you think, to this aspect of movement besides just like healthy living?
Well, and those videos, I love Marcus now. I see Marcus at races from time to time, but only for about 10 seconds before he disappears off into the distance because he's so much faster than I am. But it's really about finding balance and taking that little bit of time for yourself so that then you can be your best in all those other areas you were talking about. And those videos that our system has created, and Paul and Brian do such a good job with those. But we've got ones about somebody that does carving and wood cutting, and that's her thing. We've got some that are about people who do cooking and have a little side business as a bakery, and there's just so many different ways. We had another person that did music, and so whatever it is, that thing that's yours that sort of fills your cup up so that you're able to pour into other people. And I don't think that's a challenge unique to education, but I know that it's a challenge to education where you are called to this really high purpose of taking care of kids, but you have to take time to sharpen that saw, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a mission for me.
Yeah, you're speaking to someone who obsession is like my middle name, I think. So I find tasks and I do get joy out of getting things done and also of making a difference. But it does, like, I lose sight of when things start weighing heavily on me. And so I do think there's this aspect of having a scheduled time like to run and just kind of take away all those thoughts from your head or give yourself that time. It is like a thinking time, is really helpful for people like me who may not realize they're overwhelmed until it hits them, and that's when it gets really painful. So like if I know I've got this scheduled time when I'm running or when I'm moving or doing one of those tasks like you talked about, that is just that kind of, he even said it in his video, like it's a de-stress time. He kind of can get away from everything. And so knowing that you've got that in place as almost like a safety net allows you to have that balance. And it may not be work, like you said. It could be lots of different areas, but just finding balance in your life. So I think that's really powerful for sure.
Well, and it evolves over time, right? Like you mentioned about being busy in different seasons. When I was working on my EDS, we had two small kids. When I told my wife I was going back to graduate school, like that was a big deal because we had a newborn. So my time to get that graduate school work was in the mornings where I would run. So for that couple of years, I didn't run as much because I was making other choices because there was a promise there that family time was going to be protected. So I think giving yourself permission for things to ebb and flow as they change,
Yeah.
but still it be a constant positive in your life is that movement is critical.
Yeah. Well, so I have this quote. I can't remember if I've shared it on the last podcast, but I know you and I have been in some meetings where I share it. I say there's a fine line between exhaustion and exhilaration. Actually, I try to flip it because I try to put the positive first. There's a fine line between exhilaration and exhaustion, and I mean it's very evident in running and in movement. I think you have that fine line, like you said. There are sometimes when the endorphins are kicking in and you're kind of going, and you know that literally your body should be shutting down, and for some reason you keep on going because you're in that moment, right? Like we're talking about the power of a moment. Like you're in the midst of this powerful feeling, and your body just your mind is in charge of your body at that point. So, but I do think there is a lot of teachers who want to make a difference and want to be amazing for their kids, and they just don't realize when they've crossed that line. And so I think there's so many, I realize it as a runner, but I don't realize it in my everyday life. I realize it when I'm moving, but not in my work. And so again, for any field, not just teaching, but just in general, I think that's a great lesson to be learned. Um, Good and bad, right? So there's definitely two sides for that. Well, I just want to take maybe the last couple of minutes. We're getting close to about 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep them around there, but let's talk about instruction for a second. So I know I'm closer to the classroom than you are lately, but I think our teaching styles are pretty similar. And so, talk to me a little bit about movement and instruction. So, if we have teachers who are listening, push aside the personal side and just talk about like instructionally. How about the power of movement inside the classroom? Any thoughts on that?
So yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and I jokingly told somebody last week. I feel like Jeff and I could get in a lot of trouble together in the best kind of ways. But as a classroom teacher, I felt like I was really good at facilitating discussions and really getting into some pretty deep content. I was an English teacher and taught mostly 20th century American lit, and had some really fantastic conversations with kids over the years. But when I look back at it, I wish and trying to do this now. I wish I had built movement into my classroom. And I see teachers, elementary teachers, I think are especially good at this, that break things up in such a way so that kids aren't sitting still for too long. And I just think that's got such a, whether it's a reset for the kid to get their attention span reset, whether it's just that motion that gives you a few minutes to kind of wake back up so you don't drift into the white noise. I really, if I could go back and do it again, that would be one of those foundational things that in my classroom. I know you talk about gallery walks and things you do, whether it's the four corners of a room where kids are moving to different locations based on their opinion about different topics. I just think there's so many ways that we can incorporate movement into our classroom that maybe is a little louder and maybe looks a little chaotic for a minute, but actually facilitates and enables a higher quality of work and more learning, and that's the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of, coming from an elementary background and moving into secondary. I think as an elementary teacher, you realize if you've got the same group of 20 kids all day, or maybe even you just switch once, like you realize you've been sitting in the same position for a really long time. But in the secondary world, when my class changes every 45 minutes, I'm moving, like I'm having a different group. There's that sense of movement all day long. But for the kids, they may go from one classroom to another and sit in that desk the entire class period. And so they may have 5 different transitions, but they are literally just passively learning in every environment. And so when I talk to educators, I talk to them about, think about like shadowing this child for a day and how much passive learning you do. And so just the process of standing up and talking to other people and moving around, just adding that one extra component really like enhances the lesson and the content of what you're doing. And again, I think physically it just makes your brain, work a little bit better, honestly. It doesn't, you can't just sit there and, focus in on your paper and your notebook and putting your ideas on there. Really, it facilitates communication and conversation with other people, which in turn like gets better ideas. And like there's just so much meat to that. I do think the hardest thing for teachers is that loss of control. You said it. Like I think we're used to having things look a certain way, or we want our classrooms to behave a certain way. And so there's this release when you let your children let your students take over the classroom and take over the ownership of their learning. And it has to be teachers who are willing to try it and just see what the results are. Because I can tell you, and you can too, because we've both been administrators, like those are the classrooms I enjoy visiting. Those are the ones I want to sit in and talk to
That's
kids. They're
right.
excited about learning. They're engaged. There's so much, to even just that one component, just getting them up and talking and moving, and it's just that release of control. And so, trying something new, and kind of again parallels straight to running. So like just putting yourself out there, putting a good habit in place, and eventually those become common teaching practices. Like now, I just naturally like that is part of my classroom routine every single day. As I have this movement part of it. In the secondary world, we call it twirling. Not to get too specific, but we want to talk, write, investigate, read, and listen every single day. And it's just one of those things that naturally I've gotten in the habit now of incorporating all five of those activities. And the more movement you can put into that, it just makes all of them more powerful for kids. So, I mean, just so much cool stuff.
And I think there's so many positives to that. I think, years ago, you actually mentioned this at a training last week, but years ago when I was an assistant principal, we would bring in subs and we would create a schedule for teachers to follow. And one of the most consistent pieces of feedback they got, besides instructional strategies they observed, was how tired they were at the end of the day because it was sit for 45 minutes, move for five, sit for 45 minutes, move for five. And so I think teachers, they know it. It's just maybe a hesitation for things going off the rails. But I think there's value in things occasionally going off the rails and telling kids, I trust you. This didn't go well. Let's do an autopsy, figure out where it, and let's get better. I think you get a lot of buy-in with that. And I think, honestly, I think it prepares kids because it's rare that I sit at my desk all day. I'm up there. I'll go across the hall to talk to somebody in payroll or walk over to the superintendent's office. Conversation and movement and breaking things up is how the world works. So we're better creating a classroom environment, makes everybody better, more alert, and maybe prepares them for the future in a better way too.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I don't want to end without giving you, if there's anything else you just really were thinking about, you wanted to share with anybody. I know, I want to say I love having guests on here that maybe aren't that teachers in our district specifically, but a lot of times we think of like district leaders and people at the State Department who are kind of far off from us. And so I've purposely have included some different people who may have these words of wisdom that teachers don't always get to hear from and get to interact with. And so I appreciate you taking time out of your day to really kind of feed into these teachers, because again, I think we want to sustain and keep people in this field because it's so important.
Well, whenever someone asks me what I do, I always tell them before I tell them I'm an HR director or anything. I always tell them really I'm an English teacher because in my
Yeah,
heart I'm still an English teacher, and I think I probably will be forever.
yeah,
Um, I would say to anybody that's upset about or not upset where that came from
yeah.
anybody that is wrestling with it. It's about to be a fantastic time of year to get started with a healthier regimen. But whatever it is, the thing that lights your fire, the thing that gets you excited, your 3 minute conversation topic, that thing that's going to come up in the first 3 minutes, carving out a little bit of time to make that will almost certainly make you better in the other aspects of your life, professional and personal. So I would just encourage people to do that, invest in that thing, take the time,
That's great
give it
advice.
6 months and you're going to see a positive difference in your life.
And find yourself an accountability partner, because see, now I've tried it once and it kind of ended because I could get that habit started. So now you got to hold me accountable. This is the season. I agree with that. So I know you've spoken into my life, and you always do, but this is specifically, I think this is some good, meaty, but also this is approachable for people. So I appreciate you being on here. Hey, if you don't have a Joel Dixon in your life, take a moment, find somebody who just speaks wisdom, who always has something great to say, who is uplifting, who's a positive leader, and who enables you to move forward in all of your lives, because that is the power of a moment. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Jeff.